UFC 308 Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway takes place this Saturday in Abu Dhabi. In my opinion, this is one of the best cards of the year. It is also an early card, which I absolutely love. Okay, I will be live streaming the event in its entirety, so check that out if you are so inclined. Either way, I want to give my picks and a brief preview for every single fight on the card. We are going to start with the first fight of the night and work our way up as usual, and I'll try to go through some of the earlier fights a little bit faster so we can spend more time on the main event, the co-main event, and things like that. Although, like I said, this is a fantastic card, so there's quite a bit to talk about. So let us start with the first fight of the night, which is Ibo Aslan versus Rafael CERQUEIRA or something like that. Okay, I'm going to be going with Ibo Aslan. This fight is almost a pick'em fight. I do believe Aslan is a slight favorite. He's younger, and we've seen him compete in the UFC once already, and also on the Contender Series, both wins by way of knockout, so we've got a little bit more to go off of in terms of him. Also, you know, listen, this one's interesting because Rafael CERQUEIRA has never been knocked out, neither has Aslan. Both of these guys like to win by knockout. Rafael has fought at heavyweight, so it's going to be interesting, but also that heavyweight, the fact that he has fought there, I do believe that Aslan should be faster, at least on the feet. So, you know, pick 'em fight, but I'm going with Ibo Aslan. Let us move up the card to the next fight, which is not this one. It was gonna be, but it is not. And the UFC only updates their website once a week, which is ridiculous. Okay, get it together. Either way, Rinat Fakhretdinov versus Carlos Leal. I'm gonna be going with Rinat Fakhretdinov. Now, he has been kind of exposed, I guess you could say, a little bit in his last few fights against Nicholas Dalby and as well as Eliza Zaleski dos Santos, where he's got a little bit of a gas tank issue, and also on the feet, he is very sloppy. If he is forced to stay on the feet, he is very, very sloppy. Okay, and it's you know, it gets interesting as the fight goes on a little bit because that defense gets even worse. So, you know, while he could end up getting knocked out or something like that, I just don't think so. I think that he's going to be able to take this guy down and kind of ragdoll him like we've seen him do too many guys in the past. This guy is primarily a striker, so I have a feeling that's going to play right into Rinat Fakhretdinov's game. And also, Carlos Leal took this fight on pretty short notice, so, you know, that's a tall order to come in and fight a guy like Rinat Fakhretdinov on short notice. So that's how I'm going to be going with Rinat, by ragdolling, maybe even a TKO in the second round or something like that. Moving up the card to Ismail Naurdiev versus Bruno Silva. You know what, dude? I'm going to be going with Bruno Silva, who is a slight underdog in this fight. Okay, now, I don't even know why this guy is in the UFC. All of a sudden, this guy's making his UFC debut. Okay, Ismail Naurdiev or whatever his name is. Okay, he's 5-5 in his last 10. Okay, and his last 2 losses are against guys who they've not aged all that well. One of them got finished on the Contender Series pretty recently, okay, and the other guy's lost twice in a row by way of knockout. You know, the last guy that he beat is like 37 years old, and I'm talking like a weathered 37 years old, like full head of gray hair and all the rest of it, okay, and he's like 15-9, so he's got like a female record. He's old, and that's the last guy that Ismail Naurdiev has been able to beat. So I'm gonna go with Silva to kind of vet it out, and I get that Silva's been on a bit of a skid recently. I understand all that, right? Although I do think he should have beat Chris Weidman because of that eye poke combination. It just, the guys that he's been losing to are way fucking better. Like, not even close to the guys that Ismail has been fighting, okay? And, you know, he kind of exposed Magomedov in his first fight. So while Bruno Silva's been losing, it's not like he's been getting blown out in these fights. No diddy, but either way, I'm going Bruno Silva, slight underdog. Moving up the card to Farid Basharat versus Victor Hugo. I'm going to be going with Basharat here. Now, I believe that Farid Basharat is the better of the Basharat brothers. He's already beat some really good guys in the UFC, so it's not like we're waiting for him to get fraud checked or something, right? Like, Taylor Lapilus, very good. Damone Blackshear, very good. Clayton Rodriguez, very good. So I feel like he gets this one done. Victor Hugo is pretty good and has a lot of experience, but fighting not very high-level competition, so this is a pretty big step up for Victor Hugo at this point in his career, and I think that Basharat's going to be able to basically win everywhere. Now, he'll probably win by decision because that seems to be how he wins, but who knows, dude. Moving up the card to another fight that is not this fight. Like, this is ridiculous, bro. UFC, you need to get your shit together. Update your websites like once every couple days. It's fight week, and you've got multiple fights on here that are not happening. I have to go to Tapology to make sure. Okay, it's ridiculous. Either way, dude. Kennedy NZECHUKWU versus Chris Barnett. Now, I would have picked Justin Tafa, okay, to beat Kennedy NZECHUKWU, even though the Tafa brothers are not that good. You know, they're just not. Even when they win, they look like shit. So, I would have picked Tafa. Therefore, I'm gonna pick Chris Barnett, okay? Which is, it's fucking crazy that Kennedy NZECHUKWU is like a minus 550. Okay, we got Chris Barnett sitting at a plus 400. What the fuck is that? Kennedy NZECHUKWU is just not very good, in my opinion. Okay, at all. He's super inconsistent. Like I said, I would have picked Justin Tafa to knock him out. He lost to OSP last time out, which I get it was a very close fight. It was a split decision, but still. He got finished by Dustin Jacoby before that in the first round by KO, who is, we all know, pillow-fisted. The only guy to lose to Dom Reyes in like the last half a decade, okay? You know, it's crazy to me. So I don't know how he's going to hold up if he gets cracked by Chris Barnett, or if he would have got cracked by Justin Tafa or something along those. Also, Dustin Jacoby's a light heavyweight, right? It's, you know, so iffy. When you look at the guys that Kennedy NZECHUKWU has beaten, Devin Clark, Ion Cutelaba, Carl Robertson, these are the only guys he's beaten in the last 3 years. These guys are all shit. Okay, so I'm going with Chris Barnett. Despite the short notice and despite him maybe having the biggest man tits in all of the UFC. Okay, either way, moving up the card. 2. Abus Magomedov versus Bruno Ferreira. Now, I'm going to be going with Abus Magomedov here. Now, while Strickland kind of exposed him for a gas tank issue, it seems like he somewhat fixed that against Kyle Barrio. And when you look at the two guys that he has lost to, the two guys I just mentioned, Sean Strickland, Kyle Barrio, both of these guys are very high level, obviously. Sean Strickland, former champion, and Kyle Barrio, I think, is a future champion. Like, Kyle Barrio's performance over Jared Cannonier was fucking insane. And I think there's guys at the top of the division that he could beat, while I think there's some that he loses to just based off of stylistic matchup things. I do think he could be a champion if he gets the right guy holding the title at the right time. And he's young as well, right? So Abus Magomedov has only lost to 2 very good guys. He went to a decision with Kyle Barrio, and it's not like he got the absolute shit beaten out of him. Do you know what I mean? Like, he clearly lost, but it's either way, right? Bruno Ferreira is good as well, and he was a massive underdog. I think it was his debut when he fought RoboCop and he knocked him out cold. So that danger is always there with Bruno Ferreira. The guy hits hard, very hard. He's very explosive, but I think that Abus is probably going to wear him out a little bit, maybe make him wrestle a bit early, and then engage in the striking, where I do think that Abus does have a, like, technical advantage. I think he's better on the feet in terms of his technique and sophistication and things like that. So once you get the explosiveness out of Bruno Ferreira, I feel like you're a lot more safe in that realm. So I'm going with Abus Magomedov. Maybe by decision, but I could see him getting like a late second round stoppage or something like that. Moving up the card to Said Nurmagomedov versus Daniel Santos. Now, Said Nurmagomedov is like my favorite Dagestani dude to watch fight. It's basically the closest thing we're going to get to Zabit, I think, at this point, okay? I guess aside from Shara, but Shara's got no ground technique whatsoever. No takedowns, no grappling, no anti-grappling, no none of it. So, you know, either way, dude. I'm going Said Nurmagomedov. He's, like I said, very good on the feet, so I don't think he's going to get outclassed there by Daniel Santos. And when it does come to the grappling, he's not boring. He usually is snatching up a guillotine, and it's usually because his opponent is shooting on him, you know, because they don't want to deal with him on the feet anymore. So I could see him snatching up a guillotine here over Daniel Santos, who has never been submitted before, but still, he might want to get the fight to the ground and then get caught in it. And Said Nurmagomedov's guillotine is fucking fantastic. And even on the feet, I might favor Said Nurmagomedov. Like I said, very good, very technical. We see him throw a lot of cool shit. One of my favorite Dagestani, probably my favorite Dagestani to watch fight. So I'm going to go with Said Nurmagomedov, either by guillotine or a decision where he wins rounds on the feet. Moving up the card to Mateusz Rebecki versus Mektikbek ORALBAI. Okay, I'm going with ORALBAI here. I do think highly of Mateusz Rebecki, but I just think that ORALBAI's fucking really good, dude. And he's young, too, which is crazy. I think he's like 26 years old. I feel like this dude could go full Genghis Khan on the lightweight division by the time he's like 30. Okay, so that's what I think. Also, I do believe we've seen Rebecki get finished on the ground before. So, we did his last fight against Diego Ferreira, who, by the way, is pretty old at this point and also inconsistent in his fight. So I do think ORALBAI is going to be able to get the fight to the ground, and I think that Rebecki is going to have basically nothing for him once it gets there, and we will probably see ORALBAI get a finish at some point after wearing out Mateusz Rebecki a whole bunch, trying to stop this absolute savage. Okay, moving up the card to Jeff Neal versus Rafael dos Anjos. Now, I'm picking Jeff Neal, but I'm going to be honest, dude, I'm not confident in this pick whatsoever. Jeff Neal's pretty inconsistent, and I could see him getting taken down and arm triangled at some point. But, I'm not that confident in RDA either. RDA doesn't do well against guys who, like, historically speaking, want to grapple with him and have really good top pressure and or are bigger than him. Like Jeff Neal, Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman, right? Mateusz Gamrot, guys like this. But even in that Mateusz Gamrot fight, like, Rafael dos Anjos had Gamrot fucking panic shooting, so he's still got it, dude. He's almost 40 years old. He's jumping in between weight classes. He's more active than half the fucking roster. Like I said, at 40. And he's in a smaller weight class. Like, it's insane to me, okay? And while Jeff Neal had a very good fight against Shavkat, didn't get finished until late in the third round or whatever it was, and then the very close split decision with Ian Gary, like, neither of these guys were shooting on him and really trying to get the fight to the ground. Right, so it's interesting, but I am gonna go with Jeff Neal. Hopefully not by knockout. Okay, hopefully not by knockout, because I don't want to see RDA get absolutely flatlined. But if I was betting on this fight, I might just throw a little bit on RDA by sub, just because you never fucking know, dude. And we've seen Jeff Neal kind of get mauled on the ground as well in the past, so you never know. Hopefully Jeff Neal makes weight for this one. Anyways, moving up the card to Charles Magomedov versus Armen Petrosyan. Now, I'm going to be going with Armen Petrosyan here, okay? I'm a certified Charles Magomedov not believer, okay? I've been saying he's overrated since he got to the UFC, and I think I've been kind of vindicated in that. He has not looked that good. The guy that he fought last time was doing quite well against him, but he sat him down at one point and then just stopped and was, like, scared and terrified. And that guy had what looked like no punching power whatsoever. He had shoulders that were his shoulders and waist were the exact same. He was very dangly, no muscle tone whatsoever, no muscle definition. And he was making his debut in the UFC. They brought him in to fight him. If you look at Charles Magomedov's highlight reel before the UFC, they are all against guys that are way fucking smaller than him. Bruno Silva showed us he's got no takedown defense whatsoever, and can just be held down by a guy in Bruno Silva who's not a fucking grappler. Okay, so I think that Armen Petrosyan is good enough on the feet to, if he needs to get a takedown, I think he can enter safely, or if he wants to, rather. I think he can enter safely enough, because I think he's good enough on the feet to not just be getting fucking caught with crazy shit coming in. I also think he might be good enough on the feet to stand with Charles Magomedov, because Charles Magomedov he throws a lot of, dude, my nose is fucked, hold on. Charles Magomedov throws a lot of, like, fancy shit, but his fundamentals are not great. Lots of pitter patter shit. Nothing he throws is, like, really powerful. His leg kicks are nice, which I guess is, his fundamentals, but other than that, it's a bunch of flashy shit, whereas I think Armen Petrosyan has a lot better fundamentals, in my opinion. He's also fought and had pretty close fights and beaten some pretty good guys, right? Like Christian Leroy Duncan. Petrosyan was a big underdog in that fight, and then he went to a decision with Kyle Barrio. He stood with dudes like Gregory Rodriguez, who have terrifying power, and won. So I don't know, man. I could see him getting a decision win over Shara, or Charles Magomedov could knock him out. I guess who fucking knows? Who knows? But it seems like since Shara has entered the UFC, we've seen that when he's fighting a guy that's like his size and or bigger or taller or longer, he struggles a little bit because he's not used to that. Because before the UFC, he was fighting dudes that were like fucking lightweights. And I'm not even joking about that, by the way. Historically, those guys had fought at lightweight, some of them, and they moved up and fought this dude at middleweight. And they looked, you could tell, you know. So, I'm going Petrosyan. Probably a bit of an underdog, yeah. A little bit of an underdog, but you never know, dude. Moving up the card, too. Magomed Ankalaev versus Alexander Rakic. Okay, dude. This one, I tell you what. This is what I'm talking about here, by the way. You see the odds, okay? Sorry, my nose is bugging, bro. Minus 410. When I say that Magomed Ankalaev is overrated, I'm not saying that he's a shit fighter. I think Magomed Ankalaev is a very good fighter. But the fact that they've got him at a minus 410 right now against Alexander Rakic because he's coming off of a knockout win over Johnny fucking Walker is insane to me. I'm so sick of hearing the unbeaten streak bullshit. It's not a win streak. He drew against Jan Blachowicz. He got a no contest that should have been a DQ against Johnny Walker, and then he knocked out Johnny Walker in the last one. So in his last 3 fights, he's 1-0, 1-1. Okay? Yeah, like, you know. And then we've got Rakic here, who has beaten basically the same level of opponents. Okay? And Anthony Smith and Thiago Santos. Literally, like, same opponents. You know, so it's weird to me, man, that they would have him at this big of a fucking favorite when Alexander Rakic is very good, okay? He's bigger than him, and he's fought and beaten basically the same opponents. It's crazy, either way. Also, Rakic lost to Blachowicz, but it was an injury, you know? And then Yuri Prochazka is Yuri Prochazka, and Magomed Ankalaev has yet to fight him. Yuri Prochazka just went full fucking tard rush, and Alexander Rakic didn't know what to do, which is the only reason I'm doubting Alexander Rakic a little bit here, okay? He might have a little bit of a durability issue, right? We saw him, like I just mentioned, get injured in the Blachowicz fight. We saw him beat the shit out of Yuri Prochazka for 5 rounds and then just completely shit the bed because of a few good shots that landed and he wasn't able to recover. And Yuri Prochazka's got no defense whatsoever. So it's a little concerning to me. You know, and Magomed Ankalaev is a good striker. He's very good defensively. He's good offensively. If Rakic gets caught with a big left hand or a high kick from Ankalaev, I don't know that he's going to be able to weather that because we've seen him get finished in the past and shit, you know. So it's iffy, man. But I'm going with Rakic because these odds are out of fucking control. Now, do I think Magomed might win? Yeah. Dude, this is another thing. People get pissed because I'll pick a guy to win, and they act like because you picked somebody to win, that means you don't think the other guy can win. When I'm picking a fight, I'm going based off of, like, percentages, right? Obviously, both these guys could win this fight, obviously, right? But then when they're close to me in my head of who could win, and I see crazy odds like that, then I'm more inclined to go one way, right? Because we're trying to have fucking fun here, okay? So, you know. Rakic has a reach advantage, as you can see. He's got a size advantage. Rakic is probably one of the bigger light heavyweights. He's got very powerful leg kicks. And he can wrestle, dude. So, I don't think Magomed can just take him down and fucking maul him and ragdoll him. You know, not to mention, that's not really Magomed's MO. We saw him in the first 3 rounds against Jan Blachowicz fail 7 fucking takedowns. It wasn't until we had an exhausted Jan Blachowicz, exhausted from beating the shit out of Magomed Ankalaev, no less, in rounds 4 and rounds 5 that he was able to finally get a takedown, you know. And both those guys took that fight on short notice, so credit to Magomed for still having the gas to be able to do that, but that was probably part of the reason why Jan Blachowicz was so fucking tired, you know. Either way. Yeah, fuck. I'm gonna go with Rakic. I'm probably like 55-45 in favor of Ankalaev, but those odds make me go the other direction. So we're going to go with the massive underdog in Alexander Rakic, who I think is being looked over entirely, you know, because like I said in my fucking video, dude, Magomed Ankalaev is overrated. Doesn't mean he's not a good fighter. It means he's overrated. Period. Okay? Moving on. Lerone Murphy versus Dan Ige. I got to go with Lerone Murphy. Dude, I keep like doing this Daffy Duck thing with my tongue. I'm not trying to. I apologize, okay? Right? I'm gonna go with Lerone Murphy. I think he's way more technically sound than Dan Ige, basically fucking everywhere. He showed us he can stay safe against power punchers in the past, like Douglas DeAndre Silva and guys like this, and not get caught. He's undefeated. Now, at times he can be a little bit boring, but he's also very good and very technical. Right now, his fight against Edson Barboza is a good example of this. It wasn't the most exciting fight we've ever seen, but he was able to stay safe against a very dangerous guy on the feet. He was able to use grappling and stuff like that, and just he beat the shit out of Edson Barboza. It just wasn't in the most exciting way. I do think very highly of Dan Ige, but I feel like we've got a little bit of recency bias here because he took that fight on short notice against Diego Lima. And if I'm being honest, I don't know that if that fight wasn't taken on the notice that it was taken on, I don't think he would have had that good of a showing against Diego Lima. I think Diego Lima had a hell of a fucking fight week, and for whatever reason doesn't get the same level of credit that Dan Ige does for that whole situation. He had weighed in at 2 different weight classes, basically. Right? He was cutting down to 45, then was told never mind 55, weighed in for 55, and then told never mind, the fight's off, and then, oh, by the way, 3 hours, we've got a guy for you, but you have to weigh in at 165 or whatever the fuck it was. Like, it was insane. And he said yes as well as Dan Ige did, you know? So I just don't know that Dan Ige would have had that good of a showing of himself, right, if it wasn't on such short notice, and this is not on short notice. So I do think that Lerone Murphy's going to get it done. Although I will point something out. It's a little bit bullshit that Dan Ige did not get to fight on the Sphere card like he asked because of taking that fight on short notice, and ends up getting stuck in the fucking desert on the other side of the world. Okay? Either way, moving up the card to the co-main event, Robert Whittaker versus Khamzat Chimaev. I picked a lot of underdogs in this card, and I'm going to pick another one, okay? I'm going with Robert Whittaker. Now, in the last 10 years, Robert Whittaker has lost to 2 men, both champions, Israel Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis. By the way, I thought he won the second Israel Adesanya fight, so it's not even like, you know, it doesn't matter. Either way, he proved that he could be fucking at tooth and nail with the guy that knocked him out just a little bit after. The only reason he got taken down against DDP was because Rob shot in and tried to do some weird shit. I think went for a takedown, actually, if I remember correctly. And then Dricus du Plessis just did the head and arm throw like a fucking woman, literally. We only see that work in women's MMA unless it's Dricus du Plessis. You know. Robert Whittaker, I think, has a good style to beat Khamzat Chimaev. I know there's going to be a bunch of people that are saying I'm coping and fucking crazy and shit. But again, dude, I'm not saying Khamzat can't win. I'm just, listen, hear me out, okay? Robert Whittaker has a very good style for defending against double leg takedowns and things like this. I understand people like to say that Yoel Romero, while a very high level wrestler, before UFC or before MMA even, you know, he didn't use it a whole lot. His wrestling in MMA was overrated and all this shit. And maybe that's true. But the point is he's very explosive, and he shot on Robert Whittaker like fucking, I can't even remember how many times. And that's not to say that Yoel Romero is as effective as Khamzat Chimaev is with his takedowns in MMA. What this to say is the way that Robert Whittaker was able to get away from those takedowns is because he was so fucking bouncy on the feet. He's very quick to sprawl, and he's, you know, very quick to dig underhooks. Now, I don't know that he wants to be doing that with Khamzat, because I feel like Khamzat could end up, even if Whittaker sprawls, Khamzat could end up doing some fuck shit. And, you know, whatever. Either way, Robert Whittaker is very bouncy. I think he's going to be able to bounce in and out of range. And I think that we only really have to worry about the first, like, 7 minutes, 6 minutes even, with Khamzat Chimaev. And by the way, it's Monday, dude. There's still time. Khamzat might get food poisoning and fucking, you know, pull out of the fight and then go horseback riding the next day. But either way, Robert Whittaker's been fighting way bigger guys who hit way fucking harder for the last 10 years. Like I said, Khamzat Chimaev has 2 fights at middleweight, or maybe 3 in the UFC. One of them, the only one that people are talking about, is Kamaru Usman, who's not a fucking middleweight. He's a welterweight that took the fight on 10 days notice and flew all the way to Abu Dhabi from the States. And won 2 rounds off Khamzat Chimaev. In my opinion, that fight should have been scored a draw. you know. And I think that Khamzat Chimaev's power on the feet is vastly overstated, right? We have a guy in Gilbert Burns who's been knocked out, you know, a few times, be able to eat all his shots. Gilbert Burns was a guy that moved up from lightweight. Okay. And once Khamzat gets a little bit tired, man, first of all, I don't think he's very good in the striking department, period. But once he gets tired, it's very apparent that he's not good on the feet, right? Like Kamaru Usman was doing much better than him on the feet in rounds 2 and rounds 3. So, I don't know, man. I just feel like Robert Whittaker, and I know people like to shit on Ikram Eliskerov now, okay, because Rob fucking starched him. But Ikram Eliskerov before that had only like lost to Khamzat Chimaev. He had fought all the same guys Khamzat did in his Brave career. Lost to Khamzat. So when he got to the UFC, everybody was like, holy shit, the only guy this dude's ever lost to was Khamzat Chimaev. And he was doing fantastic up until he met Robert Whittaker. Now, he did take that fight on short notice, but still. I just think that Rob's going to be able to bounce away from the double legs, at least after the first 5 minutes, if he makes it out of the first 5 minutes, right? Because that's the thing. Khamzat Chimaev could take him down in the first round and fucking maul him or strangle him or something like that. But I can't remember the last time Robert Whittaker's ever been submitted. You know? And his takedown defense is fucking phenomenal. And yes, he got taken down by Duplessis, but by the way, I think Duplessis would fucking ragdoll Khamzat Chimaev. I think Duplessis could do basically whatever he wanted to Khamzat Chimaev. I think that of a lot of middleweights, by the way. I think Cannonier is a bad matchup for Khamzat Chimaev. I think Kyle Barrio would fucking mog Khamzat Chimaev. You know? I think, like, you know, honestly, dude, this guy is untested at middleweight. Completely untested at middleweight. His only middleweight win, aside from Robert Whittaker, is a dude that's not in the UFC anymore, and Gerald fucking Mearshart, who looked like a deer in headlights when Khamzat was walking up to him. We're going to be in a full-size octagon. We've got a Whittaker who is constantly bouncing in and out of range. We've got a guy that we know gasses, right? And once Khamzat Chimaev gasses, bro, you better fucking believe Robert Whittaker's feints are going to have him fucking biting on shit like crazy, okay? Because he's not sophisticated enough on the feet. So, fuck it, dude. Like I said, percentages, okay? I'd probably, fucking hell, maybe 51-49, 52-48 in favor of Khamzat. But I'm picking Rob because we're making it fun. He's an underdog. He's unironically more active, even though he's not even one of the more active middleweights than Khamzat Chimaev. Khamzat Chimaev can hardly make it to a fucking fight. He's got the immune system of a literal 1-month-old baby. Okay, so fuck it, dude. I'm going Robert Whittaker, and if I'm correct, then I'll look like a genius. Okay, moving up the card to the main event. Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. I'm going to go with Ilia Topuria here. Again, for all you Max fans, percentages, right? I probably favor Ilia 57% in this fight. 43 Max, 57-43, something like that. There are things Max Holloway can do to win. And I don't know that Ilia Topuria starches him. Okay, I don't know that that happens. Because Max has been fighting guys that hit hard as fuck at lightweight, you know. And, I don't know, man. Ilia's got very crisp boxing. He's very good at getting inside. He's very good at... He throws like 3-4 punch combination where he goes head body head type shit, or head body head, which helps him land. He's also very intelligent. He doesn't throw that many shots until he knows he's gonna hit you at least one of those times. Like with Volkanovski, he was basically throwing 2-punch combinations until he started to get Volkanovski backing up a bit. And then once Volk was closing in on that black fence, then we started to see 3. He would end it with a left hook to the body or something. And then once Volk was against the fence, we saw like a 4 or 5 punch combination to put him out, you know. So Ilia Topuria is very good, and that's why I think he's going to beat Max Holloway. But like I said, there are things Holloway... Also, Ilia can grapple if he needs to. And while he might not even want to, he can at the very least threaten it. So he can just, you know, grab a hold of Holloway for a second, let him go, just to be like, just remember, you know, I can do this too. Because he's very good grappling. Very good grappling. I think we're going to see Max Holloway come out. Muay Thai Max. Which is what City Kickboxing, or, you know, not just City Kickboxing, Joe Lopez, who was not City Kickboxing at the time, but Volk's head coach, and Eugene Behrman call Max Holloway when he came out for fight number 2, right? Because Volkanovski used in the first fight a lot of leg kicks to win that fight in him versus Max 1 to win the title, and then Max came out in the second fight looking very different than he did from the first fight. He came out very light on his front leg. He was literally picking it up the way that a Muay Thai fighter would. And he was throwing a lot more kicks than he would normally throw. Max Holloway before that used to, you know, primarily use boxing, obviously. And then in this fight, he was using a lot of kicks. Now, something that he kept doing, and this is very interesting, and maybe I'll do a video on this, breaking this down, was Holloway would, he would enter with like a really slapping left. He would almost sometimes have his palm open against Volk. Slapping left hand, and he would follow it up with the right. Now, the first few times he threw this, Volk countered him with like heavy right hands. So, and Volk can't crack the same way Ilia can. So if you get countered doing that against Ilia, this is an issue. But the point of that was the slapping left hook and then the right hand that he would throw as like a cross was to get Volk's head slipping to Volk's left towards Max Holloway's right leg. And then at the end of the round, we saw him do what he was obviously trying to set with that, was slapping left hook, right hand. But when he threw the right hand, it was very lazy. He threw it out just as some bait, and the head kick came right behind it and landed perfectly. Right, drop Volk, put him on a knee for a minute, so, or a second. So I do have a feeling we're gonna see Holloway be a little bit more kick heavy so that he can kind of stay out of range of Ilia Topuria's punching power, at least for the first little bit. But, man, Ilia Topuria's defense is really fucking good, dude, and I think it gets maybe unappreciated or unnoticed a little bit. So in the Volk fight, when I watched it live, I thought Volk was doing fantastic against Ilia Topuria in the first round. When I watched it back just last week, I didn't think that as much, because there was a lot of things that Volk was doing that just were not as impactful as what Ilia Topuria was doing. Like, Volk would land 3 leg kicks, Ilia Topuria would land 1, and his 1 was worth like 5 of Volk's. Do you know what I mean? Because Volk was just trying to touch him, not necessarily overextend himself and things like that. Ilia Topuria also was pretty consistently landing the right hand for a counter. Volk would be rolling with it, so they didn't land as cleanly as they ended up in the second round. But even though Volk had a lot more volume in that first round, Ilia Topuria was just like marching forward, hands up real high, elbows tucked in, crouched over a little bit, and just was, you know, I don't want to say he gave Volk that round, but what I would say is I think he was being patient, and he was waiting and downloading and seeing what Volk was going to do so he could pick up reads. And we saw how that played out. He did it. Like, you know, he fucking flatlined him. And I get that Volk was maybe not at his best when he went into that fight, but he's still a dude who is not, when not at his best, I think washes everybody else in the fucking division anyways. You know, so it's well, I don't know, it's an interesting one. I do think Max could win. Like, I think he could surprise us all. There was a lot of people, including myself, kind of writing him off against Justin Gaethje just based on how we had seen him look at lightweight before that. Although in hindsight, that was probably stupid. He beat the shit out of Justin Gaethje, okay? But Ilia Topuria is very good, man. His defense, I think, is one of the highest in the UFC. He's up there with, like, Sean Strickland and Islam Makhachev in terms of striking defense. His offense is very accurate. He's sophisticated in his shit. Like, he sets you up for stuff. He's not just throwing to throw. He's very slick to, you know, duck under, take the back if he needs to, and things like this. Yeah, man. I like I said, I don't know that he finishes Max Holloway, but I feel like if it goes to a decision, that favors Max. But we did see Ilia Topuria in, I believe, round 4 against Josh Emmett get a 10-7. Now, he was basically fighting like a fucking moving heavy bag, so it's not like he was expending a whole lot of energy. You know, he wasn't getting hit and having to defend a whole lot. Well, I mean, he was slipping and moving out of the way of Josh Emmett's shots, but, you know, I don't think he's going to gas. But Holloway, you know, the numbers start to pick up as the fight goes on. So it's a very interesting fight, and I'm not saying that Holloway can't win, but I do think Ilia Topuria gets it done. And honestly, dude, listen, if Ilia Topuria beats Max Holloway and beat Volkanovski for the belt, the people that don't like him better stop fucking acting like he can't fight, because this dude already is fantastic. But you see the leg reach here. This is why I think Holloway is going to keep it kick heavy, so he doesn't have to get in tight, because, you know, Topuria has actually got shoulders, so his reach is going to be the same as Holloway when it comes to the punches. Also, we've seen Ilia get hit with head kicks before and get dropped, right? So it could happen. Could happen. Either way, dude. That's it. UFC 308 this Saturday, Abu Dhabi. Like I said, I will be live streaming the entire event. Check that out if you fucking want to. But either way, like and subscribe. See you at the next one. Bye-bye.